Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Spoiler Force Podcast. You can find all episodes on any podcasting platform like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and watch episodes on YouTube. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and make sure to follow Spoiler Force on all social media platforms at Spoiler Force Podcast.
This is Mark Whitten, and you're listening to Spoiler Force Podcast. Set your heart ablaze.
All right, so this is episode 108 of Spoiler Force Podcast. My name is Ricky, and thank you for tuning in. This week's guest is a returning guest. I have Kaya Rogoyski back on the podcast to talk about Violet Evergarden, one of my favorite anime series and movies that I discovered last year. So I'm pretty late on this hype train here. But as you can see, Kaya even dressed up as Violet. I'm so excited to see her cosplay. If you haven't checked out her photos yet, follow her on Instagram. The link should be in the show notes and descriptions. So support her as well. How have you been? I almost called you Violet. How have you been, Kaya?
That's like the greatest compliment. I've been doing really well. Today is actually Lunar New Year, so I've been celebrating. We made some decorations last night, and my daughter prepared some red envelopes for her classmates.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great point to bring up too. I forgot about that. Today's recording is on Lunar New Year Day, so happy Lunar New Year Day to anyone who celebrates that as well, and to the fans and followers. And also shout out to the Black community as well that support this podcast. So happy Black History Month to you guys too.
Yeah, Black History Month.
And so yeah, it's a lot of things today. It's been it's a lot of new celebrations and excitement here. But again, we're here to talk about Violet Evergarden. I do want to just start off with how I discovered this anime. I'm very new to this. Last summer was when I first watched it. And for the fans who don't know, Kaya and I briefly talked about this on the last episode we did together. So you can check that one out. I believe that was episode 101. But yeah, I discovered this just on Netflix, just going through the anime list, and before I knew it, I was hooked. And then when I found out that it was done by KyoAni, I was even more excited because I love their animation studio.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I absolutely fell in love with it. And then right after we did our episodes together last time, the movie was coming out too. So how did you get into Violet Evergarden, Kaya?
I had a good friend introduce me to the show. He was just like, "This is a really great show. You should watch it." And I started watching it, and I fell in love with the show, and I just followed it as the episodes were releasing. And then I was really excited when the movie came over. It took a while, but it did come over, and so I was able to. I missed the movie screening because it was during COVID, unfortunately. But I was able to wait and watch it when it started streaming.
So what are your thoughts of this series overall? Just like give a just talk about like what was your like was it something that surprised you? Because for me, this series caught me off guard. Like most KyoAni content, like I didn't have a lot of expectations watching this. I just saw it. The animation looked really good. The music was really good, so I just dove right into it and was blown away by it. So how is that for you?
I think that when you start watching the series, you can immediately appreciate the quality of the animation. It's gorgeous. I mean, even if you don't even like the story, the animation is gorgeous to watch. The scene near the beginning with, the letter flying into the air and like the leaves and everything, it's really beautiful. And you can tell that the staff put a lot of time and effort into making it that way. So I have a lot of appreciation for the studio. As for the show itself, I think what caught me off guard the most was how emotional I got watching it. It was an incredibly emotional show for me. I cried almost every episode, and I actually really enjoy shows that can move me that much and give me that much of an emotional catharsis. So I really enjoyed the show for that reason.
There was a few tear-jerking episodes for myself, but on the emotional aspect of this show, I was not expecting it to be like episodic like that, where Violet meets new people each episode. And then I loved how they did it too in this story. A shout out to the director and writers and the people who worked at KyoAni, because I know that this series came out like right when the that arson happened.
Yes.
So my condolences to the people there and to all the workers there as well. But yeah, it's just each episode contained its own like mini story, and that's what I really enjoyed about this show. And then like especially the aesthetic and the themes that they had, like it was like almost Victorian sort of
Yeah,
European
it was,
inspired.
set in Europe somewhere was kind of the feeling, but there was
Yeah.
obviously no actual, country that was based off of. But the thing is, that I was going to say is, even though the series is very episodic and each episode has its own set of, like the characters that Violet meets are different from episode to episode. But at the same time, there is kind of an overarching story of her growth as a human being and her learning what it means to love. And I think that that's something that really ties the whole show together. And so even though it is episodic, at the same time, you have this incredible character growth, and a character arc that develops throughout the entire series. And that is something that I really think is masterfully done.
What was your thoughts on just Violet initially? Because she comes off very, very blunt, emotionless, a doll, as you can say, and as she's mentioned
Mhm.
throughout this show. Um, what was your thoughts on the character herself?
Well, I think that they did a good job portraying somebody who's clearly been emotionally stunted from their wartime experiences and also her terrible life before the war. And I think that, in some sense, I think the story of Violet Evergarden is actually a Bildungsroman. It's a coming of age story, even though she's in some sense she's perhaps a little bit older than the average protagonist of a coming of age story. Her emotional stuntedness makes her, in some sense, like a very immature person. And so it's really about her finding who she is in some sense. And so that's something that I think is the point, I guess, of the show. Like the whole story is building towards her figuring out like what is love, how does she express herself, that sort of thing. And I think that initially, I think there were some criticisms of her being kind of a bland character, but I think that they had to portray her that way to show her growth. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any difference between when she started and when we reached the end of the series in the movie.
Yeah, I really liked seeing how far she grew throughout each
Mhm.
episode, like learning each different aspect of like a point of, I guess you could say like a point of view of what people's or a person's perspective of what love was.
Mhm.
Some episodes that like stood out to me definitely was the where she met the orphan boy, the guy that his name what Leon, I think, where his mom left him to go
Mhm.
find his dad, and he was like doing being the scribe and just being angry and being somewhat bitter because he got
Mhm.
left behind. And then
Mhm.
when him and Violet kind of just resonated with each other, figuring out like what it's like to be left behind and
Mhm.
to find a way to move on. I think each time Violet met someone new, she learned a different aspect of, I guess, how to just cope with herself and her situation. One of
And
the
she
episodes. Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. I was gonna say, and she gradually understands like what she's lost.
Yeah.
Um, that phrase at the very beginning when Claudia tells her you're burning, and she's like, I'm not burning, and she takes it very literally. But later on in the series, you can really see that she understands like the things that she has done. She has to own up to them and understand what those things meant and how can she live with what she did in the past.
That's a very good point you brought up too. Because when you again when we first see Violet, she doesn't understand what emotions are. She takes things very literally. It's either happening to her right then and there or not at all. And
Well, I think
one
she's shut herself down, right? I mean, I
yeah.
think that it's a protective kind of thing that people who are traumatized will do. They'll shut themselves down. They'll stop themselves from feeling things.
Well, and it's also like just her being, right off from the war too, like just being so numb to everything, seeing the worst of everything, and I guess just being trained and brought up like that. Because if it
Mhm.
wasn't for Gilbert having some sort of empathy towards her, I don't think
And
she would have
kindness,
been.
right?
Yeah, she probably would have been a lot off. Like if it was Gilbert's brother that was in charge of her, I'm pretty sure she would have been much worse than what she was like after the war.
Hmm.
But I think with Violet is just I love seeing her growth, and shout out to the voice actress here. I just want to shout out her name, Yui Ishikawa. She does the voice of Mikasa too from Attack on Titan, which she's one of my favorites. And she does it so well with bring Violet, because it's not, I guess it's not so monotone, but it's very stoic. She kind of just, there's, even in her voice there's really nothing there until like she witnesses or learns from something. And one episode, when she meets the writer Oscar, well, not Oscar Isaac, but Oscar Edward. Is that, I forgot his name? His name was Oscar something. When she meets that writer, and then he talks about like how he lost his daughter, and how he couldn't move on from just from all those losses that he took, and he couldn't write anymore. And just that episode, man, like that, seeing Violet learn all of that, and to just I guess move forward from their situation. And the scene where she jumps across the lake, that was so beautifully done.
I was going to say that the voice actress does an amazing job also, because in those few moments where you start to see Violet change, she brings a very special kind of nuance to her portrayal. The scene that really sticks out to me is the episode with Anne Magnolia, the 10-year-old daughter with the mother that is sick. At the end of the episode, when Violet has her breakdown, it's just such an emotional scene, because she's normally so stoic. She's normally so held back and reserved. And to have her kind of have that emotional breakdown is very effective because of the contrast, I think, from her normal demeanor.
That episode broke me. That was the episode that I teared up on. I couldn't stop myself from like tearing up. Each episode, like you said, it's emotional, but this one, I think, because just seeing it from the point of view of Anne, because that's how like the episode starts, and it just shows off. You see, you're seeing everything from Anne's perspective. Her mom's sick. She knows her mom's sick. She knows her mom's gonna die soon, so she wants to spend that time with her mom. And when when she has like that tantrum where she's like, quit wasting your time with the doll here and spend time with me, she runs off. And it's not until the end of the episode where you realize what her mom was doing. And just that ending, oh my god, just like her writing letters.
Yeah, I still, even just thinking about it, I'm tearing up.
Just like the getting the yearly letters, and just just seeing what her mom wrote for Anne. And like there's some parts like that kind of really stuck out, like you're like a teenager now, are you dating?
It's definitely forever going to be one of the best episodes I've ever seen. I think it's I've seen it 3 times at this point, and I've cried so much every single time. It's just that effective. I think even knowing what's going to happen, it's so well done that I can't help. Now I know if I'm going to watch that episode, I need to have a box of tissues.
And you brought up a great point too at the end where Violet breaks down, and usually she doesn't have, like, she's learning empathy, but at this point, like when you see her break down, it's like she understands what's going to happen to Anne. And I think that's the part that really got me too, because she's like, she's going to be alone, and I couldn't do nothing for her, and
right in that house all by herself.
Oh my god, that was just so tear jerking. It really was.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, it's scenes like that, and that episode itself is what made me like really enjoy this overall series. And I love that even when all of this is happening, you're still seeing Violet's growth from and the experiences that she's going through after where she thinks Gilbert or Major Gilbert is dead, and the trauma that she has of that. Because like you said before, when you brought up the whole burning aspect, when she's learning, like some of these people the lives that I took, some of them, they're not going home to their loved ones. The letters won't be sent to them. People are sending letters to them, and I
there's
think
even that episode with the soldier where she she accompanies him, and he literally like dies in front of her, and then she has to take his letter to his family. I think that it really drives home to her, the people that she killed in the war, like that each individual person, has a family, had their own life. And so like having the full understanding of what that meant, it's very powerful.
Was there any I guess least favorite moments or least favorite characters you had in this show?
I mean, I enjoyed every episode, to be completely honest. I think that, I mean, the episodes building up to, I would say, the umbrella episode are a little bit less powerful. For example, the one with like Charlotte and Prince Damien was nice, but it was like, I mean, I think what really moved me in that episode was Princess Charlotte's love for her I forgot her name actually. The woman who had taken care of her the whole time, like her surrogate mother, basically. And that at the end, that really moved me. But the part where they were just like writing to each other, I mean, it was cute, but I was like, okay. I mean, that episode was a little weird. Also, I think maybe just it was a little weird for me because Princess Charlotte is 14 and Prince Damien
they're all like
is
grown ass
24, and I
men
was
talking
like,
to her.
oh wow, that's kind of a weird. As a modern viewer, I shouldn't be passing judgment because obviously these are like, it's supposed to be set in a time when that's the custom, right, to marry off the princess when she's of age. But from a modern perspective, like, oh, she's very young. She's 14.
No, the part like
maybe for that reason that maybe that made me uncomfortable. So that episode, I was like, oh, it's not as good as some of the others. That's my own opinion. But overall, I just thought the series, every episode is very strong. Characters I don't like. I mean, an easy one would be the general who wants the war to continue and, is sabotaging the train line and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he was like not one of my favorite characters.
I think I wanted to add on to the whole Princess Charlotte thing. I think one part that like I kind of am like, oh my god, like when she mentioned like she was like 10 years old and like all those people came to see her and it was to supposedly
and she
court
knew it
her.
wasn't for her. It was because
I just thought that part was kind of like that was a bit excessive, but I get it. During those times that was normal, but still, like like you said, as a modern viewer, I was just like, oh man, that's kind of that's kind of weird. But
well, I mean, she's much too young by modern standards to be like being considered for marriage. But I mean, I also understand that in historical times. And also in some countries these days, girls are married off very young. And,
it's someone that's still practiced, which is still kind of, to me, weird. But in the show, when I was watching it, that was just my initial reaction. Like, really? Like, you guys couldn't wait a few more years? Like,
I know. I was like, oh, she's 10 years old and they're prospective suitors. And I was like, oh my gosh.
No, but I wanted to add on to some of the least favorite characters was for me. Initially, it was Gilbert's brother that I did not like.
Oh, yes.
Like
I mean, he's supposed to be kind of like somebody that I think you're not really supposed to like. He's portrayed in a very negative way, at least initially.
Well, I just didn't like the fact that, and like again, just through first impressions, not like it wasn't towards the movie where I kind of like
right. I mean, he gets redeemed.
But he comes off really like just douchey to Violet because he
absolutely. I mean, he treated her like a thing.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, there was some implication that it was very bad. I mean, clearly I think that it's very lucky for Violet that she didn't stay with him.
Yeah, because even before like before Gilbert's passing, he still treated her in such a harsh way. And then like post Gilbert, he looks at her and he just blames everything on her. Like, if it wasn't for you, then Gilbert would have been dead. And he blames a lot of the things that he feels guilty of towards on Violet. And it's just
absolutely. You can see the failings of him as a person. At the same time, I think later on we have a greater understanding of that's his way of coping with his pain. But yes, early on, it's just like, this guy is a total like a-hole.
Yeah.
I also felt the same way about him. It wasn't until I really watched, I'd say near the very, but when you watch the movie, you kind of really get a greater understanding of both his relationship to his brother and kind of why he was the way he was.
Yeah, the movie did a great job explaining his
Mhm.
backstory in the background. Like even towards the end of season 1, where he kind of like where he has to work with Violet to save the train.
Yes,
He's just like,
that was a little bit better.
yeah, he's like, okay, I have to do this. And even Violet stands up to him saying, I'm not just this doll, I'm not just this
Mhm.
soldier that you know anymore.
I think
I'm
the feeling
changed.
that we have is that he wants to despise her. He wants to have
Yeah,
a reason to blame somebody, because the alternative is to accept, something that's very painful for him. So in some ways, it's a common human failing that we want to blame somebody so we can feel better. It's sad, but it's actually something that we see a lot, in our daily lives, I would say.
definitely. Again, it's just another way to cope
Mhm.
with loss or grief. And I think
Mhm.
some of these themes that Violet Evergarden touches on, such as like grief and
Mhm.
um losing someone, and the aspect of what love is. I think a lot of these major themes here for the show it was brought out really well throughout the whole thing. It's not like where it's just like arcs of the
Mhm.
show here. It's the entire show, which I think that's what made the show really stand out. Was it wasn't really like typical of anime where it's just like, oh, you're gonna go through this arc for this character, and then the next arc, and then the next arc. This one, it was just, again, like with each episode containing its own mini story,
Mhm.
and then in a wide lens, you just see everything connect. And I think that's what
Mhm.
made Violet's growth so much more impactful, because you see when she finally understands the part where she learns about Gilbert's death, or they confirmed her that that he's dead, and she just loses it, and she tries to like strangle herself and stuff like that
Mhm.
in her room. Like I think seeing her grow from the beginning to up to that part is just, you see how she can how she's learning how to feel her emotions. And I think that's what
Mhm.
really resonates to viewers. Like it's not just where we feel like it's we're not like how can I word this? It's you're learning to just feel for other
Mhm.
people, like other people's emotions and whatnot. So what was your thoughts on the end of this series, where she finally moves on from, because she goes was it the end where she met Gilbert's mom, right? That was
That
I
was,
believe that
yes,
was.
that was very close to the end. I think
Yeah.
it's supposed to symbolize a renewal of hope, right? That she's stepping out into her own life now, and she's accepted that. I don't think she's fully accepted, but she's decided that she's going to live, and to take, in some sense she really is getting up and walking on her own 2 feet. And the message that I got from the end of the series was that, it takes an incredible amount of strength and to have that kind of personal growth for her to start out as somebody who's like so completely dependent on Major Gilbert's orders that she can't, function without them, to the point where she's able to hold down a job, and support herself, and to have the emotional strength to continue on by herself. Because at that point she doesn't know, that she believes, or she has to come to terms with what everybody's telling her, that, Gilbert's dead. And so I think that I mean, I think at the end of the series, she still is holding on to some faint hope that he's not dead. So I wouldn't say that she's completely accepted it, but she's able to live without having him like there as a crutch in some sense, right? And that's an incredible amount of character growth.
Before watching the movie, my view of the end of season 1 was like she learned to just not let go, but to just move. She moved on. Where, like you said,
Yeah,
she didn't
she learned
depend
to
on.
stand on her own 2 feet.
Yeah. Um, if it wasn't for the movie, my viewpoint would be a little bit different. But
Mhm.
because of what happened in the movie, it's changed a little bit, which we'll touch up on that in a few minutes here. But yeah,
Mhm.
at the end of season 1, initially, I just thought that she was able to finally make peace with what's
Yes.
happened with Gilbert. Because again, throughout this whole show, she's learning what the words "I love you" means, and
Mhm.
I really like that. It's not just love as in like romantically. It's love, like love for your peers, love for your kids, the people around you, showing kindness to people and being
Mm-hmm.
empathetic to people. So seeing Violet learn all these different ways of loving differently, um, I really thought that this made the ending great for season one. And even with like the special episode that took place between like episode 4 and 5, the one where she meets the opera singer,
The
I thought
opera
that one
singer.
was
Oh yeah, that one. Mm-hmm.
that one was really good.
Mm-hmm.
She was. I didn't watch that like in the
In
actual
order.
like order. I watched that after season one.
Yeah, I did too. Actually, I watched it after I finished the series. Mm-hmm.
So I like that she also learned from like reading people's letters and seeing what their thoughts on what love was. I thought that was really neat. And then even with like and even with like the first movie that happens,
Mm-hmm.
the Eternity and Auto Memory Doll, I thought that was a different way to look at like moving on from like your past, or just to wait. I guess that for me, that movie really stuck out too, where it was just waiting for the right moment kind of theme.
Right. I
um
think one thing that I wanted to say was that I think it's not just moving on, but also understanding everything that. So her love for Gilbert and Gilbert's love for her has given her so much, and that's part of what is able to keep her going in some sense. So it's kind of about the value of love. I think even if the person is not there anymore, it's like understanding that love sustains us. For instance, that episode with Anne and her mother, the mother dies, but her love continues, and there's a very like physical manifestation of that in terms of the letters. But I think the message is still that the love that people have for each other continues and it sustains us, even if that person is there no longer. So for Violet, like Gilbert's love for her and his kindness to her when she was an orphan, like he in some sense he was like her family, right? He taught her how to read. Just very, it wasn't, he had more than one role, I think, in some sense. It wasn't even that, it was, obviously there's a romantic component, but he also cared for her almost as if she was a part of his family, right? So I think that the message I got was that love, it has become part of who she is, and it is part of how she sustains herself. And I thought that was a beautiful message from the show.
Agreed. Yeah, I absolutely agreed with what you just said. It's definitely because Violet's character, she comes off very stoic and emotionless, but her actions throughout each show or each episode, like she just shows more grace and love towards the people who've gone through like almost the same suffering as she did in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
And she can relate to them, and that's what I really liked too, was that she was able to each character she met, she was able to relate to in some
Mm-hmm.
way. And I think that when at the end, when she just like, it's like an oversight of what's happened, she kind of just learns like, there's so much more to what's just happened. It's not like where it's not all bad at the end kind of
Mm-hmm.
deal. And I really enjoyed how they wrapped up season one like that, where she just kind of makes peace with herself and with what's happened to Gilbert, and then
Right.
just goes on from there. And I loved how at the end where they give you that slight little cliffhanger where she meets someone and becomes like she's on another task or job, and I
Right,
really
and you
like
don't
that a
see
touch of
who
that
it
too.
is, right?
Yeah,
It's kind of hinted that it might be somebody that she met before. There are all kinds of fan theories on the internet about who it is, and it's kind of interesting. Some people say that it's breaking the fourth wall, that she's addressing us, the audience. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting way to kind of to bring everything to a close.
If you want to start your own podcast like Spoiler Force, then sign up with Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout has helped hundreds of thousands of users like me to begin their podcasting journey. With easy-to-use tools, you can effectively get your podcast into different platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and more. You can view your stats, create audio clips, and even have your own podcasting website. Buzzsprout offers ideas, tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you improve your podcast. Follow the link below, and once you sign up, you'll get a $20 Amazon gift card. This will let Buzzsprout know that I sent you and will also support Spoiler Force Podcast. If you want a simpler way to record both video and audio for your podcast, Then sign up with StreamYard. StreamYard is the perfect program to create podcasts, host live streams, and even do video calls. There are many tools that can help you create and design your own personal studio. You can screen share, read live comments, and stream to different destinations like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. You can also download your video and audio once you're done with your recording session. Follow the link below, and once you sign up with the basic or pro plan, you'll earn a $10 credit to use for StreamYard. Happy podcasting. Now let's move on to the movie here that came out last October.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm kind of glad that after watching Violet Evergarden the first time, like the movie came out just like a month or two after watching it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really excited for this movie. I know with COVID and everything, there was a lot of I guess not a lot of delays, but it just they had to put it on Netflix just because of the streaming services. What was your thoughts on the before we get into like the details of the movie? What was your thoughts on just the movie itself, like overall?
So I enjoyed the movie. I understand that there are some. It's caused a division, I think, in the Violet Evergarden fan community because some people really don't like it, and a lot of these people, I think it's because they feel like it deviates too much from the story in the light novels. But I actually really enjoyed the movie, and I think that the movie Gilbert gets more hate than he deserves. Okay. Okay. You know, I think that we as people need to extend some understanding for, you know, somebody who has PTSD and just things like that. I think a lot of the fan hate seems to be like, well, you know, I just feel like people don't understand perhaps like the extent of the trauma that he's gone through and how much guilt he feels over Violet losing both of her arms, you know, to protect, like when she was protecting him. That's sort of, I think that's the kind of thing where if something similar has not happened to you, it might be hard for you to understand like the kind of emotional impact it has on a person. I just, you know, I try to imagine what that would be like, but it's obviously not something that's happened to me, so I can't really say. It's just that I think that a lot of the fan hate is just because they see Gilbert as being very weak in the movie.
I kind of didn't really like the direction they went with Gilbert in the movie. I understand why they did it though. It's just to me it was just kind of too typical.
Oh, you thought
um,
you thought it was predictable? Is that what you mean?
yeah, because it was
Mhm.
just like, you know, oh, I feel guilty. Don't come near me. And he's pushing Violet away
Mhm.
to not just for himself, but to hopefully that, you know, so Violet doesn't come back and try to. I guess he doesn't want to like traumatize Violet in some sense, where he doesn't want to remind her that, you know, I'm the reason why you suffered, or I'm the reason why this happened to you. I get that, but just as a viewer, I just didn't like that approach because it just seems too predictable. Because we know at the end he's gonna be redeemed at the end. I don't know. It
Oh
just
well, yeah. I mean, it is a very predictable conclusion. I think that the catharsis comes from Violet relying on her skills that she has gained on her own through her own character growth to communicate and to reach him. So I thought that's what was meaningful about the movie conclusion, right? So he pushes her away and she's, you know, she is heartbroken, but she leaves on the boat. But she wrote this letter to him. And that to me is, that letter is the culmination of everything from the series, like that she has learned. And so in some sense, I thought it was meaningful because she could not have reached his heart, I think, without having gone through everything she had gone through on her own and growing as a character without his, you know, presence, I guess, in her life, right? So it showed her growth, and the fruit of that growth was that she was able to reach him and convey how she felt. And so that was kind of like you know, I think that was supposed to be kind of like a reward in some sense for her growth and being able to, you know, communicate in a way that was effective.
I do appreciate the parallels between that, like how it's Gilbert is someone who's full of life and very optimistic,
Mm-hmm.
and then post-war he's completely emotionless, doesn't care, he let go of everything. And Violet's the complete opposite, where she was emotionless and then she learns how to have emotions. I really enjoyed that parallel in the movie. And I thought that was something that, aside from like the predictability at the end, I liked that contrast between both of these characters. That he helped her in the beginning, and now at the end is her helping him to kind of
Mm-hmm.
come back and come to terms with what's happened after the war. Um, but even in the movie, just seeing how Violet kind of almost reverts back to like being that soldier again. Like when she finds out that he's alive, like she does everything she can to bring
Mm-hmm.
him back. And this is the one part I kind of didn't really like, was like how soon they revealed that Gilbert was alive just based off his handwriting. I kind of wish they built that up more. Um,
Oh yeah. Well, I
it,
mean, the movie would have been longer, I think, if
yeah, because they kind of just like point like, oh my gosh, that's his handwriting, and then they just like completely confirm that this dude's alive.
and then they went right into they were
Yeah.
like, oh, we know where that's like this, that's where this. I agree that it was very quick, that part of it. I did like that the movie gave us insight into Gilbert's childhood. That wasn't something that was in the series, and his relationship with his brother. It really humanized like Dietfried. I thought
Yeah.
it made him less of a monster.
And with the two brothers, with Gilbert and Dietrich, I really liked how they kind of show you why his Gilbert's brother is so tough, because he
Mhm.
was like trying to meet some sort of familial expectation that was passed on to them, because
Yeah, and
their
he
dad was in the
rebelled
war.
too, like
Yeah.
that he decided he didn't want to take on this heavy burden of carrying on, the family tradition. And I think people can sympathize with that, and a lot of people understand what it's like to be under intense pressure from your parents.
And I think that's why at the end, that's why I really liked his character. Like, at the end, that's when I kind of like, okay, his brother's not so bad. Because at the end, he was
Yeah,
like,
I felt the same
let
way.
me take on that burden now that was supposed to be mine, because you did it for me. Go
Mhm.
and be happy, and go chase Violet type of that. That ending. I really like that. Like at the end, even though there was differences between these two brothers, like he still loved his brother. Like he
Mhm.
still looked out for him, and that's for me, I that kind of hits a little bit closer to home now, because recently I've lost uh and I guess a cousin that was like an older brother to me. And
Oh, I'm sorry.
I really just relate to that part of the story now. And it is just seeing how Gilbert was like, he didn't want nothing to do with it, and his brother just came like, this is your last chance. If you don't take this now, you're gonna lose it, and let me deal with what's gonna happen, and you
Mhm.
go find happiness. And I really just enjoyed how his brother did that.
Right, I think it was a good, was there a depiction of sibling love in the original series? I'm trying to think back.
I don't know, to be honest. I didn't read the light novel, so
Well, no, I'm just trying to. I think that it really. I mean, I think you bring up a really good point. Like the whole series is about the different forms of love, and the love that we have for our siblings is a very strong love, and so understanding the relationship between the two brothers, I think, is very important.
I just really just, I guess as a viewer, like from just from my own opinion and my own perspective, I really just like that arc, and seeing the growth
Mhm.
of Dietrich, like again being so mean and so spiteful to Violet. Like he had like some sort of concern for her too. He's like, like, you're not, when he told Gilbert like, you're not gonna go after her, like go like
Yeah.
that's your one shot right there. Go for it. And even he,
I also
and some,
think that there was like this turning point where he was like, "Do you want to see my brother's things from when he was
yeah.
a child? Like, do you want to see the boat?" I think that he's showing her kindness and understanding. Like he understands that she cares very deeply about him. So even though he doesn't like her, at least our impression up until that point is that he doesn't like her and he blames her for Gilbert's death, right? But he's able to set that aside and he's also coming to terms, right? It's kind of like she's not the only one processing the grief. he's also processing the grief. And so they actually become like buddies in some sense because they're both processing the grief of Gilbert's death. And, I know it sounds weird, but
It's
you know,
like very underlying kindness that he has for Violet, which I thought that was very sweet that he did too. He's like, you can have that, I have no use for it. You could take whatever you want from the boat.
I know, and it becomes like a treasure, right? It's like it's really cute.
Another story that was in the movie too was Eurus. I believe that's his name, Eurus.
Yours, yeah, the
The
boy
young child that was sick.
was sick.
Man, that part tore me apart. Like just watching his arc. And shout out to Ann Yako too, because Ann Yako voices Eurus in the English dub, so I thought she did really well. But man, watching that scene when he did when he wrote the letters to his parents and then to his younger sister or his younger brother?
Sister. Yeah.
And then when he tried to reach out to his friend and he couldn't, and then through like modern technology he was able to call his friend.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that part tore me up. I was in the living room in my house.
I was definitely crying. I think at the end when he admitted, like, I just didn't want you to see me weak. I didn't want you to see this like ugliness. That really just, it tore into my heart. I was like, just, and the friend's like, I don't even care about that. I just wanted to, I just wanted to spend time with you. And it's like, that's what love is, right? Like, you don't care if your friend looks like crap. Like, you just want to like spend time with them. And so like, I think that it really cuts to the heart of like, what is love? Love is like, caring about somebody, regardless of like whatever else is going on. And so, yeah, I think that the movie had some really good story arcs, even if you don't like the overall, the way the situation with Gilbert and Violet was resolved. There are lots of smaller parts or other story arcs going on in the movie that make it very enjoyable.
I really liked how when Eurus is writing to his parents. I think when Eurus wrote to his parents, that part hit me pretty hard. Because like he had some sort of animosity towards his parents, and he was like blaming them for something. And then at the end, when his parents read the letters, that I don't know. I guess just the thought of reading physical letters it probably hits a lot different now. Because now with our phones we can just text message someone or video call someone. I think there's still meaning behind leaving like your handwriting behind to someone or writing something to someone. So like when his parents read those letters, man, that really hit me too. And it's just the idea of like seeing a parent lose their kid is what really hurts. Because I don't know how that would feel like at all. But I've seen people lose their child, and that kind of pain is different compared to.
I think it's probably the worst thing that could happen to a parent is to lose. Because you're supposed to die before your kid. So like having your child pass away before you is probably the absolute worst thing that could happen. And I have a daughter, and I just can't even imagine how. I think I would just be destroyed if something like that happened to her.
Yeah, I again the way how the movie did like this mini arc here for Eurus and his family, and then still tying in with Violet, learning how to just, it was another learning lesson for Violet too. Just seeing like how, in a sense, where Gilbert pushed everyone away to like how Eurus did, and how she had to figure out how to
reach.
How to reach Gilbert. Because initially when they meet him in the movie, he kind of just like looks at them, he's kind of shocked, and he wants nothing to do with them. He just like, leave me at this great farm, let me teach these kids, let me redeem myself. I want nothing to do with
I think he says like, it's very painful for him because it's a reminder of and if you think about it, why is it so painful for him? Because he loves her, and he knows that she lost her arms because of him. And so that's like looking at her as a reminder of like the guilt he must feel for that. It must be extreme, it's, and I don't know, just, I'm just glad that by the end of it, he comes to his senses, and with the help of his brother and and Violet's letter, like he needs to focus right on what's important. So I'm glad that I think that the movie did do a good job, I think in terms of portraying that aspect of. I think the controversy is that people think that Gilbert was just that he doesn't deserve Violet, I guess, is kind of like what some people. I don't know. I read the
oh man,
forums and stuff.
I don't think it's not like he deserves Violet, but I guess
It's kind of the wrong way to even talk about this kind of thing because
right.
I was like, come on, people.
Well, it's bound. It's obvious that they'll end up together, but I think to say that he didn't deserve Violet's kind of a bit excessive.
Yeah.
I think had they, again, like I said, with how they just revealed that he was alive, I think that probably played a big part of it. I really wish they discovered his, like, how he survived a lot differently.
Do you mind if I mention something about the light novels that?
Yeah, go ahead. I haven't read it,
I don't
so
want to like spoil anything that you might want to like discover on your own later. But
no.
So I was gonna say that in the light novels, there's kind of this understanding that Gilbert. So I actually, complete like disclosure, I haven't finished reading them. I'm reading them right now, but I've been online and I looked at what people say, and it seems that people are disappointed with his depiction in the movie because he's shown as just like he was kind of wallowing in his own like self-misery and guilt and PTSD, and that was like why he'd never contacted anybody. That was why he didn't let Violet know that he was still alive. But I think in the book, from what I understand, from what people have written online, he does it intentionally because he wants Violet to grow and become independent, to be able to live on her own without him. And so it's kind of a bigger picture kind of view of things, and that he has the maturity to understand that as the situation is at the beginning, where she's like completely dependent on him, that's not good for her. That he knows that that's not for her benefit. Like if she immediately found out that he was still alive, she wouldn't have had the character growth that she had in the series, right? She's able to kind of become her own person because of his absence. And so even though his absence is very painful for her, it's kind of a necessary step for her to become the person that, that she does become. And so in the light novel, from what I understand, when people are writing about online, he intentionally kind of, he's working behind the scenes to help her in ways that she can't see. And he's doing it because he really cares about her. He cares about her as a person. He wants her to have this emotional growth. And so I think that, the people who are fans of this storyline, they were disappointed with the movie depiction because they're like, well, he's just self-centered and focused on his own, suffering, and he's not thinking about Violet. Whereas in the light novel, from what I understand, it's that he did do a lot of these things for her. So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting difference in terms of how they approached the depiction of Gilbert.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it a huge difference when it comes to like books and the animated or even movies and that, because like with the movies, there's limited amount of content they can do.
Right.
With the
I
books,
don't know how long it would have taken to show everything.
Right. It probably would have just been another season had they not pushed out this second movie. Mm-hmm. Do you think that should have been the case then? If it had, because since you're reading the light novel, there's a little bit more details there. Do you think they should have done this second movie as a second season?
I mean, as a fan of Violet Evergarden, of course, I want more content. So, but the thing is, I don't know. I feel conflicted feelings about it. There are some parts of the book that were not adapted into the anime. Like there's some certain chapters with certain characters. I know there's one with somebody in a prison. But ultimately, I think the show stands very strong on its own, and the movie does too. I mean, you don't actually have to read the light novel to appreciate it. And so I'm just doing it because I love Violet Evergarden, and I kind of want to see all the different stories that are out there. But it's very slow reading for me because, it takes me like twice or three times as long to read than so far I don't believe it's been translated into English, so I'm reading it in Japanese. And I'm just much slower.
I was contemplating on buying the light novel. So if it's not, is it completely done, or is are you just reading like just the
I mean,
Japanese
the
version?
Japanese is fully, it's finished. I expect at any time now they're going to release an English version.
Oh, okay, I'll probably just wait until they do that then.
Right. I mean,
um,
I was like, should I wait or should I try to read it in Japanese? But the artwork is gorgeous. They had so light novels always have a few, black and white illustrations, but they also have some full color pages in the front. And just the artwork made me feel like it was totally worth, shelling out for the light novels.
what was your thoughts on the end when they finally reunite? When Violet jumps off the boat, she
Mm-hmm.
chases after Gilbert, and then just where they finally meet again, or they come together again.
Mm-hmm.
And this scene here with Violet, when she's like trying to just say that she loves Gilbert and she couldn't, and you could just see it in her, like her body language, like she just had all this overwhelming emotion on her.
Mm-hmm.
What was your thoughts on that?
I thought it was really well done. I thought they did a good job showing kind of how strongly she felt. She couldn't verbalize it because of how strongly she was feeling. And I think that all of us at some point in our lives have had moments where we're so overcome with emotion that we can't talk properly. And it's like, and I definitely feel like that was kind of what was going on there. Yeah, it was very beautiful too. That obviously I mean, it was created for cinematic effect, but the place where they made it's in the water, and there's like beautiful, like it's just it's a nice scene for that scene to happen.
I really just appreciated, like, even her voice actress, man, like how she was just stumbling with the words and still like crying heavily and sobbing, and then like the way
Mm-hmm.
how Violet couldn't process her emotions when she's so like controlled, where she is someone who can control her emotions, but when it came to Gilbert, like she just
Mm-hmm.
lost it. And I really liked how this humanizes Violet even more. Where again, because we keep, as viewers, we look at her as someone who is like a soldier, sort of someone who has um who's not, at this point she's not emotionless, but she's still very timid. And when it came to Gilbert, like she just was herself. Like we finally get to see Violet's true colors when it came to just Gilbert. And
Mm-hmm.
the music and everything about this scene was just, it was just so good. Like
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely loved the quality of this scene. And then the fact that she could, again, the fact that she couldn't say her words was what sold it for me. I thought that was perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was really well done. It was kind of weird. I watched it with my husband, and he's like not easily moved, and so he was kind of like whatever, or he had like this like poker face, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm glad I watched this movie by myself. Had I watched it with like friends or with
Oh, you would have
close
probably
ones,
felt self-conscious, right? Yeah.
I probably would have been poker face too. Like, oh, it's all right. But then deep down inside, I'm like, oh my god, yes.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, and I really like the tie up at the end too, where like after they get together and she just stops writing letters. Um, due to the advancement of technology too, but and people learning how to read and write. But the character at the end that they showed, where like they showed in the beginning too, but like it was Anne's granddaughter.
Yeah, I
I
love that.
love,
I
yeah.
love that it shows like the impact that she had on somebody's life. It's like, and that person, that the granddaughter going back and finding out information about her. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was just very well done. And it
Yeah,
kind of made everything feel like, I don't know how to put it in words very well, but it made it feel like she became almost like a historical figure. It was like
yeah.
somebody that had existed and left an impact on the world.
I really enjoyed that they memorialized Violet at the end too, because like she walked into that little museum and she's like, you
Oh, there's
know,
a stamp. Yeah.
yeah, I know who this is. I've heard about her, but I don't know who she is. And
Mhm.
I like that they made Violet, even though she wasn't a doll, auto memory doll for a long time. Like the way how she wrote her letters impacted so
Mhm.
many people. And again, that being Anne's granddaughter at the end being the one that discovers her and then decides to write letters to her parents. I thought that was really great to see, kind of like, even after all those in the movie, even after all those years of Violet not writing, she still inspired folks to write letters. I
Right.
thought
Her
that
impact on the world was still felt. And I thought that was really sweet. Like that girl learned that sometimes it's easier to put into a letter something that is hard to say.
and yeah, that's why I enjoy like I don't write letters often, but there was one point in time in my life where I wanted to write letters to people. I think when I was still in college at one point in my life, my English teacher was like, that's kind of like a form of communication that's being lost right now because everything's just so quick. Um, the amount of the effort that it takes to just even write a letter to someone means a lot. Just to be handwritten.
Yeah, I think it feels very special to get a handwritten letter these days. I mean, most of my mail is junk mail and like advertisements or whatever. So when I get a handwritten letter from somebody, it really, you really feel that that's something special. I think that for me, it's become more of a tradition kind of thing where certain points of the year, at certain times, I will write handwritten notes and letters and cards to my friends and family. But yeah, I think that traditions kind of are important to maintain partially for that reason, because it's special, right? It really is something that is meaningful.
It really is. I haven't written a letter since like 2012 ish. I thought I could keep that going, but I didn't. So, yeah, it's just this series reignited like that part of what I enjoyed about writing too. Is just like the way how like it's just, I don't know, everything about this series was just something that caught me off guard, and that's the best way I can explain Violet Evergarden, was because I wasn't expecting it to be this good. So one of my, what I say, top 10 anime for sure, but just story wise, man, I absolutely love this, and I'm glad I was able to kind of just geek up about this with you too, being a fan of Violet Evergarden. Was there
Absolutely, it was really fun.
anything else that you wanted to, like, I guess, speak on about Violet Evergarden as
Oh, I
well?
was just gonna say, if Violet Evergarden, if watching it makes you want to write a letter the next time you feel something, like a strong emotion, I think that's wonderful. It'll have an impact in the real world as well. It's a great show. I really enjoyed talking about it with you. It was very enjoyable.
Before we do wrap things up here, Kaya, was there any other projects that you were working on? I know the last time we spoke, you were still practicing the piano for the end song for Violet Evergarden. Was that something that you're still doing?
Oh yeah, Michishirube. So I'm going to try to play it actually. Since I'm already in costume, I might as well try to play it later. But I know it takes a long time to get all this stuff on. So.
No, I really appreciate that you dressed up as Violet.
Oh no, I mean
For
I
this
enjoy
episode.
it.
I thought that was great.
I
I
definitely love,
absolutely
but
love it.
once I've put in the effort, it's good to kind of since I already have the costume on, it'd be good to try to play the piece. I do have it mostly down, but I'm somebody who doesn't perform well under pressure a lot of times, so we'll have to see how well the recording goes. What else? I am working on another costume right now. I'm working on Dagger/Garnet from Final Fantasy IX. And it's been really slow going because I've been so busy with all the different things, taking care of my kid, and then Chinese New Year's is a big event, and then there's like a lot of stuff coming up for her school that we have to prepare for, and so yeah, it's slow going, but I've been making slow progress in that.
I can't wait to see. I love seeing your Instagram story, like your updates on your costumes and the work that you put in. So I can't wait to
Thank
see
you.
the finished outcome.
Thanks for checking my stories.
No, I love seeing how detailed you get with like certain, just even certain parts of the cosplay. I think that's really cool because look, for me, cosplay has been something that I've always enjoyed trying to learn. Just seeing how people create their costumes, I think that's what really kind of sticks out to me. And then with the anime, dress up darling out. So like they kind of like break into the whole making costumes and all of that too. So I think that was really neat. But yeah, I can't wait to see your finished outcome for Garnet for Final Fantasy IX. for the fans and listeners out there who don't know you and want to follow you, where can they reach you?
Oh, I'm on Instagram. I used to be on Amino, but I'm not really on there anymore. You can just find me. I'm at Kaya Rogoyski on Instagram. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll have that in the show notes and all of that too. But again, thank you, Kaya, for just geeking out about Violet Evergarden with me. I know there's probably a lot of stuff that we missed out on. So anyone who is watching or listening to this and you want to throw in your 2 cents too, please comment on the video, or you can email me and give your thoughts on this series too. But yeah, I can't wait to see your future content, Kaya. And again, if you ever want to jump back on again just to geek out about something again, I'll love to have you back on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you, guys. This is episode 108 of Spoiler Force Podcast, and enjoy your day. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to give a review and rate Spoiler Force Podcast. If you want to get all Spoiler Force updates or even peeks at behind the scenes, you can join the Spoiler Force Discord community. And if you'd like to show support, give tips, recommendations, sponsorships, or any collaborations, you can email me at rickyvang92@gmail.com.